Hi everybody, so excited to be going live. I am very excited because what was meant to be yesterday is now today. I was just trying so hard yesterday to try and go live on my page, and unfortunately technology was not on my side. So all right, so we're basically doing Wellness Wednesday on a Thursday. So as usual, I'm just going to share right now this amazing video and say hello. Tell me what you're up to, where you're tuning in from, and let's get the party started. So we're talking all about IBS and diet today, nutrition, which is my specialty, obviously, being a nutritionist. And I'm super excited to be sharing with you something super amazing, but mostly really helpful for a lot of the people who are struggling with IBS and gut issues, and just generally anything to do with bloating, gas, constipation. So you better believe it, I am dropping some value bombs today, okay? So share with friends if you have friends that suffer with IBS, Irritable Bowel Syndrome. If you have friends who are struggling with bloating and gas, just, share it with everyone far and wide on Facebook. So I'm actually going to just finish up right now here to share on my timeline, and then we can get started. All right, so ready to go. All right, guys, welcome to Wellness Wednesday on a Thursday. Again, technology was not on my side yesterday, so yesterday's is what we were basically supposed to do yesterday, we're doing today. So like I said, say hello, tell me where you're tuning in from. And if you're new on my page, welcome. My name is Alessia. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and gut health specialist. And I specialize in helping people with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and chronic digestive issues like bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea. And I help them conquer IBS finally, feel good from the inside out, physically, mentally, emotionally, get rid of anxiety that comes with digestive issues. And I do this all without restrictive diets and expensive supplements. All right, let's get started. So today we're talking all about the IBS diet. So I've actually over the years in my own journey and working with clients, I have compiled step-by-step process, which I now call the 8 steps of the IBS. I can't speak today, the IBS Freedom Diet. And I wanted to share with you guys these steps because I find them incredibly powerful and really effective in 1, managing IBS symptoms and flare-ups, 2, preventing future IBS symptoms and flare-ups, and 3, ultimately getting you on a plan that is sustainable, a diet that feels, easy and, simple to follow, that isn't super complicated, that doesn't require lots of different steps, and most of all, that you can still eat nutritious food. So that's really important to me. I'm a foodie at heart. I love food. I've always loved food. But in my own journey with IBS, I struggled with finding a diet or a sustainable way to eat that didn't involve being super restrictive. I've gone through my own fair share of, different sort of experiences with different diets. I was raw for a while, raw vegan, and then I was whole food plant-based for several years, and then I was paleo as well. And now I found a middle ground, and I found a middle ground for myself, but what I do on my own body is going to be different from how I work with clients. Yes, it's going to be similar, but everyone is different. And that's the thing that I want to discuss today, is that ultimately, as a whole, we are all different, and we are all going to be affected differently by different foods and different styles of eating. So it's really key that we keep that in mind, and we start to think of more about what's unique to us and what works for our unique needs, rather than following trends and following the latest fad diets. All right, so today I'm talking about the 8 steps of the IBS Freedom Diet, and I've actually shared a infographic on my Instagram. If you're not following me, please follow me, AlessiaD_coaching via Sana Wellness. You will find me definitely on Instagram, and I post lots of really cool stuff, but also I shared it here on my page. So the infographic actually shares with you the 8 steps, so you can actually print it out and keep it on your fridge, so you can always be reminded of what these 8 steps are that you should be taking in terms of nutrition. So irritable bowel syndrome is one of those very confusing syndromes where a lot of people are, most of the time affected by what they eat. So their diet plays a huge role, and how we can fix the majority of IBS symptoms is with diet. So actually getting rid of IBS is primarily, I would say, 70% diet related. So we can definitely tackle that first. So, and that's what I do with my clients in my IBS Freedom program. So let's look at the 8 steps of the IBS Freedom Diet. So I'm going to actually go through all the 8 steps today. I'm not going to be diving into super detail on each step, because otherwise this live is going to be extremely long, but I am planning to dive a little bit deeper each week on each of the topics and give you some ideas, meal ideas, recipe ideas, and foods to avoid, and so forth. So today is going to be an overview of the 8 steps to the IBS Freedom Diet, and then on a weekly basis we're going to dive in a little bit deeper. So the number one thing on the 8 steps, so step number 1 would be to focus on real unprocessed foods. And we all have heard this already. Get rid of processed junk food. So when it comes to your IBS, there's nothing worse than eating a diet rich in junk food, processed foods, foods that come out of a can, a box, or those ready meals, foods that have lots of additives and lots of preservatives, basically foods that aren't really real. They're made in a lab. So I'll give you an example of one that is really trending right now, and that is the Beyond Burger. So the Beyond Burger, or the Impossible Foods burger, those vegan fake mock meat burgers, those are super raging right now. And I have a lot of clients that are plant-based that follow me, or there are a lot of clients that come to me that are vegan and still suffer with bloating and gas and a lot of IBS symptoms. Guys, get rid of those processed foods, okay? Processed foods are not going to do any good for your gut. They're actually going to promote inflammation. They're filled with additives and preservatives and foods that you're actually not, your body doesn't need. And most of all, your gut doesn't actually recognize these foods, so it causes a lot of inflammation in the body. So Impossible Foods, Beyond Burger, all these fake mock meats, fake cheeses, fake, even those nut milks like almond milk and soy milk and rice milk, and all these milks in cartons that are filled with lots of additives. Yes, they may be plant-based, but they're actually worse for you because they're filled with lots of additives. So we don't want to focus our diet on these foods. We want to base our diet around whole foods, real foods that are unprocessed. So those come from animal foods and protein, and foods that you can actually recognize, like foods that are, usually made from nature. So things like, your vegetables, your fruits, and most of all, just focusing on animal foods and animal proteins. These are your richest foods that are very high in nutrition and nutrient dense. So focus on real food, okay, guys? Get rid of this this processed foods that just does not do you any good. Now, number 2, the 8 steps of the IBS Freedom Diet. Step number 2 is focus on foods that are easier to digest. So what are foods that are easier to digest? Now, as a whole, I'm going to give you a few examples, but it's going to be quite individual for different people. Everyone's going to be very different. But number 1, focus on animal foods. Animal foods are actually really easy to digest. They are super digestible. Your body assimilates them really fast. Yes, they take longer to pass through, but that is actually a misconception that a lot of the plant-based movement focuses on, is that they sit in your gut and they rot and whatnot. That's all actual misinformation. That does not happen, okay guys? Actually what happens is, the reason why you don't have a lot of waste, or you perhaps aren't going as much to the bathroom after you've eaten meat, is not because you're constipated, or it's not because it's sitting and rotting in your stomach. It's actually because your body has assimilated most of the nutrients and there's no fiber for it to remove. So it doesn't sit in your colon and rot, okay? So it's just a misconception. Meat, high quality, unprocessed meats, very easy to digest. Foods that are not so easy to digest are, tough leafy greens, especially when they're raw. Cruciferous vegetables, again, very difficult to digest, especially raw. And legumes and grains. Those are very difficult to digest. They produce a lot of fermentation in the gut and cause a lot of bloating and gas. So they also cause a lot of leaky gut. So again, this is all very individual. So think about, keeping a food diary and, examining how your food affects you, because it's going to be different for everybody. Number 3 of the 8 steps of the IBS Freedom Diet is that you need to focus on a diet plan, or a way of eating that is low in irritants and allergens. So here's where that food diary comes in. Okay, here's where what I do with my clients on this stage is that we look at what is triggering your symptoms. So things like artificial sweeteners, chemicals, weird things that we cannot pronounce in foods. Again, they usually come from packaged and processed foods. Gluten, dairy, eggs, peanuts, those certain types of, and soy, those can be actual allergens for a lot of people, and they cause irritation in the gut and actually cause flare-ups. So you need to figure out, what are your allergens, what are your triggers, by keeping a food diary, and have a diet that is low in those irritants. Now, step number 4 of the IBS Freedom Diet is a diet that is anti-inflammatory. So a diet that is anti-inflammatory is going to be a diet that does not promote inflammation. So by removing these allergens and these irritants, and by removing processed foods and including foods that are easy to digest, now your diet is anti-inflammatory. So we're going to focus on foods that are not promoting inflammation, and we're going to focus on getting rid of food that is going to cause those inflammatory responses in your body. And what causes inflammation? Irritants, allergens, foods that you're allergic to, foods that you're sensitive to or you have an intolerance to, like again, gluten, dairy, eggs, peanuts, legumes. They are high in lectins, phytates, grains, those things that I actually talk a lot about in one of my free ebooks that I've put out. It's very popular. It's called The 5 Myths of IBS that is keeping you from healing or keeping you in pain, and how to ease your symptoms for good. So I'm going to actually drop the link in the video. All right, so I'm actually going to drop the link right now, and you can actually go and download that. It's free, so definitely go check it out, all right? So here is number 5, sorry. Number 5, so number 5 of the 8 steps of the IBS Freedom Diet is a diet that is nutrient dense, okay? Now, a lot of people are super confused on really what does that mean, nutrient dense. Now, on paper, you can take, for example, let's look at blueberries, okay? On paper, blueberries can look like they're really nutrient dense. You plug in some blueberries into Chronometer and you'll come up with vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, and your antioxidants and all of that good stuff. And you think that they're going to be super bioavailable, or those nutrients are going to be easily assimilated, but actually they're not going to be as easily assimilated as a piece of meat. So nutrient density extremely subjective when it comes to different foods. So the most nutrient dense foods are salmon, ribeyes, steak, red meat from good quality sources, eggs, if you can tolerate them and they're not a trigger food, some fermented dairy, liver or beef liver, and salmon roe, and also some bivalves like oysters and mussels and those kinds of foods. Now, those kinds of foods are packed with nutrition. They're super duper super duper nutrient dense. So they're filled with those amazing nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin K, D3, B12, those omega-3 fatty acids, those bioavailable nutrients that your body craves. And that is what we want, nutrient-dense foods. I mean, beef liver is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, all right? And so if you compare it to blueberries or kale, it's night and day, guys. And the reason is because it doesn't come with anti-nutrients, all right? Whereas, a lot of plant foods come with anti-nutrients that block the absorption of calcium, iron, magnesium, zinc. So we need to really look at how nutrient dense are plant foods compared to animal foods. So I talk about this a lot more in detail in my free ebook, The 5 Myths to IBS That Are Keeping You in Pain. So definitely check that out. The link is in the comments. All right, number 6. Here's where things might get a little confusing and you're probably thinking, oh, it's becoming really restrictive. Now, hear me out, okay? Number 6 of the 8 steps to the IBS Freedom Diet is carb restrictive. Okay, I say carb restrictive, not carb or zero carb, okay? So here's the thing. A lot of people think that when they need to heal their IBS, they need to be like super militant forever. They need to be on a restrictive diet forever. But that is not the case, okay? I, for example, beat my IBS and now I eat a lot of different foods that back in the day when I had my IBS, I did not eat. Now, what did I do? I healed my gut. I practiced the principles of functional gut rebuilding, which these principles are what I cover in my IBS Freedom program, one-to-one coaching with my clients. And I practiced the IBS Freedom Diet. So I worked my way up to be able to tolerate certain foods. So now I can tolerate a little bit of gluten. I can tolerate some dairy. I can eat, a donut without having to go in an IBS flare-up. See, that's the difference between restriction forever and a healing protocol that's going to work in the short time, but then help you long term. Okay, so the IBS Freedom Diet is a framework. It's not something that you always have to follow. Once you're healed, you can start adding foods back in, okay? Now, when I say carb restricted, I simply mean limiting or eliminating very hard to digest starchy carbs. Now, this is probably something that you may have not heard of, but whole grains are actually not that healthy for your gut, okay? They actually irritate the gut. They are full of phytates and lectins that are pro-inflammatory. So they're actually going to make it harder for you to heal your gut in the short term. I still eat whole grains. Most of the time, I keep it to a minimum. And I do most of the time have just white rice because I find it a lot easier to digest than brown rice, for example. But I still eat them sometimes, but because my gut is strong, I can actually tolerate it. So here's the difference really, is that I've spent time healing first and now I can tolerate these foods. So carb restricted simply means to, during this healing time, to keep the carbs to a minimum. So focus on animal foods, traditional fats like butter, ghee, fatty salmon, and fatty cuts of meat, and then your veggies and a little bit of fruit. That is your diet. So it's not really restrictive. It's just restricting carbs for a little while because that's going to help you in the long term rather than just putting a Band-Aid. Now, a lot of these like low FODMAP diets or elimination diets focus on staying, completely low FODMAP for like a long time. But this is what happens is you actually end up not being able to tolerate any foods. And now, you've got a list of foods that you can't even eat anymore. And it's just, this list is getting bigger and bigger. And that's not what we want. We want to strengthen your gut long term, okay? So you can finally actually be a bit more lenient with your food and find food freedom. All right, so make sure to definitely check out my free ebook, The 5 Myths of IBS That Are Keeping You in Pain and How to Ease Your Symptoms for Good. Link in the description, link in the comments, guys. So you can actually check out exactly what I mean by anti-nutrients in carbs and starchy foods. All right, so number 7. All right, number 7 is short and sweet. Number 7, the 7 steps. We're almost at the end, guys. So number 7 is a diet that is enjoyable. Okay, guys, this is a big one, especially for me because I'm a foodie. Now, if you love to eat food, you are going to want to enjoy your food. I don't know about you, but I can't think of anything worse than when I was back in my IBS flare-ups and, deep into my IBS symptoms. I remember going out and I had so many restrictions. I couldn't have dairy, I couldn't have gluten, I couldn't have, certain types of fish, I couldn't have certain types of legumes. Like there was just so many restrictions that I could have avoided if I had just done the work, if I had actually done the work. So make it enjoyable. You want to be able to enjoy your diet. You want to be able to enjoy the foods that you're eating with your family, with your friends. So work on healing so you can finally enjoy your food. And number 8, so finally, number 8 of the 8 steps of the IBS Freedom Diet is it needs to be customized, okay? It cannot be a blanket diet, one size fits all approach. Absolutely no. So here's where the problem lies in today's society, where I notice, especially with the rise of social media, YouTube, Instagram, where anyone can actually talk about nutrition and be a health coach without any qualifications and without really any knowledge. Now, here's the thing, nutrition is always evolving. So you're always going to be seeing different opinions, okay? You're going to be seeing the carb versus the low carb community, or the low fat and the high fat community, or you're going to be seeing people saying you should be vegan, or another person says that you should be carnivore nowadays, or keto. So you're going to see these opposing views. And I will tell you from my own experience, I was vegan for 3 years, and despite being a nutritionist and despite knowing how to do the diet, I still did not thrive, okay? I felt good for the first 2 years, and then the 3rd year I started declining. My health started declining. So it just goes to show that it's all very relative and subjective. Everyone is going to have a different body makeup. So it's so important that you listen to your body and you work with a nutritionist that's going to help you based on your unique needs, not what they think. So if you come to me and work with me one-on-one, I'm not going to put my biases on you. I'm going to give you all the information. I'm going to give you all the necessary tools that you need, and then you make the decision for yourself. All right, if you want to be plant-based, then you need to be armed with the knowledge that perhaps plant-based might not work for you. Or if you want to be carnivore or low carb or high carb or keto, like anything, it's all just a diet, right? It's not a lifestyle. So here's what I do and how I work with my clients. You come to me, we look at where you're at, we look at what you're currently doing, we look at your triggers, and we look at your current diet, and then we see where we can make improvements. We don't have to eliminate everything all at once. So we find what works for you and what's customized to your unique needs. And that is number 8. Those are the 8 steps. So let's recap. So step number 1 of the IBS Freedom Diet is eating real unprocessed foods. Step number 2 is you've got to eat foods that are easy to digest. Step number 3, we're looking at including foods that are low in irritants and allergens. So a diet that does not cause you flare-ups. Number 4 is a diet that is anti-inflammatory. So a diet that is actually going to promote healing rather than promote more inflammation. Number 5, of the 8 steps, nutrient density. We got to look at including lots of nutrient dense foods so we're satiated, so we're satisfied, so we're eating enough calories and we're eating the right nutrients rather than just looking at what's on paper. And remember, what you see on paper is not necessarily what your body is absorbing. Number 6, carb restrictive. Again, this is temporary, not necessarily forever and not necessarily for everybody. Okay, this is just temporary. Carb restriction. Carbs are a macronutrient that yes, you do need, but you don't necessarily need it in your healing time or the time that you're healing or your healing protocol. Number 7 is a diet that is enjoyable. You've got to be able to enjoy what you're doing. You've got to be able to make it sustainable and enjoyable. And finally, number 8, it has to be customized to you. So guys, I've shared the 8 steps of the IBS Freedom Diet with you today, and I hope that you found it valuable. I have shared in the comments below my free ebook, the link to the 5 myths of IBS that are keeping you in pain and how to ease your symptoms for good. It's a free ebook. I talk about the 5 top myths that people are still stuck believing and that's actually keeping them stuck without them moving forward and healing in their IBS journey and also digestive health journey. So maybe you don't have IBS and you still have bloating and gas, constipation, diarrhea, any gut issues at all. Definitely download this free ebook. There's a lot of information there, probably things that you've never heard of before and probably things that you might have heard already and are just a good refresher. So I've also shared yesterday, the infographic to this 8 steps to the IBS Freedom Diet. So check it out, guys, and save it, right click, screenshot it, whatever it is, save it to your phone, print it out, stick it on your fridge, have it as a reminder, okay? And if you need help implementing this, these 8 steps, please let me know, send me a message, drop me a comment, and I'll be happy to help you implement these 8 steps. All right. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the gut series. Now, I'm going to be diving into each step in a bit more detail as the weeks go by. So stay tuned. Definitely make sure you like my page, and if you have any questions, drop me a comment or a DM and I'll be happy to answer. All right, guys, don't forget, download your free ebook, The 5 Myths of IBS That Are Keeping You in Pain, and let me know what you think. And if you haven't yet, join my free Facebook group. The link is at the top of my page on Facebook. All right, guys, see you next time, and in your gut health, stay true to yourself and always love your body from the inside out. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.